Welcome to the Honest Mamas podcast, where we talk about the emotional and spiritual aspects of the motherhood journey. We are a team of honest mamas. Myself, Melissa, Sophie, and Claire. We are psychotherapists, moms, and friends. Join us as we get real about the topics that matter to you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of the Honest Mamas podcast. This is Sophie. Today, I enjoyed speaking with Lacey Broussard on the topic of rediscovering our sexuality as mothers. Lacey is a certified sex, love, and relationship coach. She supports women in reconnecting with their sensual selves and helps them discover or rediscover the erotic and multiorgasmic genius within. Lacey also produces the Multiorgasmic Mama podcast. So what leads new mothers to feeling disconnected from their sexuality? Well, the list is long. There's shifting hormones, lack of sleep, anxiety, traumatic or disempowering birth experiences, or feeling unfamiliar with their new postpartum body. And not to mention the overarching cultural stigmatization of a woman's sexuality once she becomes a mother. Pregnancy and motherhood has the potential to unlock incredible sensual energy in a woman. And when this sensual energy is experienced within the context of a society, though that still holds antiquated traditions for what it means to be a mother, that contrast can really be shattering. In terms of heterosexual relationships, it's important to remember that new mothers have 10 times the amount of oxytocin, that's the love hormone, 10 times more than men. Now, after we give birth, and for months, even years after, we are swimming in a pool of oxytocin. We get oxytocin surges from breastfeeding, from hearing our baby cry, from kissing or smelling our children, or even just looking at them. For men, their levels of oxytocin only come close to ours at the time of orgasm. Now, after baby, men are still seeking intimacy and connection because this is the only time they experience hormonal equilibrium. During our interview today, Lacey will discuss the wisdom of low libido in new motherhood and what we can do to keep intimacy alive in our partnerships during this time. In terms of sensuality, having sex and feeling sensual can mean very different things. It's not uncommon for women with young kids to have sex with their partners out of guilt or as an attempt to regain their sensuality. But seeking one's sensuality or looking for one's sensuality in a partner can prove futile if you haven't been able to access it from within. So in today's interview, Lacey shares some simple practices that women can do to connect with and celebrate their sensuality. So if you are like many of us and feel as though motherhood has sucked your libido dry and you need to jumpstart your sexual spark, you are in the right place. Here is my conversation with Lacey. Let's get started. Hi, Lacey. Welcome to the Honest Mamas podcast. It's so good to have you here today.
Hey, Sophie. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. I've been excited about our conversation, and I'm really, just really eager to be talking about our topic today of motherhood and sexuality. I think it's a really important one, and I don't think it nearly gets enough airtime. So I know you're passionate about this topic, and I'd love to begin just by asking you some questions.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Well, maybe first we can begin by you just sort of introducing yourself and letting us know how you became interested in the topic of motherhood and sexuality.
Sure. Well, I am a sex, love, and relationship coach for soulful people, and I work with a lot of mamas, and I really enjoy working with people who want to experience more connected sex, better sex. Maybe they haven't had sex in a long time and don't know how to break out of cycles of bad sex, no sex, all that kind of stuff. And I really got into this when I became a mom. After I became a mom of two, I had really amazing births, one home birth and one preemie hospital birth that really inspired me to become a doula and a midwife eventually. So I started working at a birth center where I live in Lafayette, Louisiana. And working there, I went to a lot of births as a doula and a midwife apprentice. So I kind of was working between both roles. And as an apprentice, I would help conduct, the postpartum appointments. And they were all very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
At least in midwifery, you get a little more time and generally more attention than OB. So I would hear a lot about women and their experiences with sex postpartum.
So that's the interesting part. You're saying like a lot of stories and experiences that mothers shared around their sexuality.
Yes.
Okay.
When I postpartum visits, because they come to the 6-week appointment after birth, and that's usually the time where you can give the clearance for intercourse, make sure all of their stitches and any wounds that they had were healed, and making sure everything's okay. And some of their reactions were just like, wow, I'm so not ready for this, and after, usually a lot of my clients would become friends, and I would hear them saying the same thing over and over for months and months and months after birth. And I didn't know what was really going on for them that was keeping them from having any sexual desire at all. Why my experience was different. So I just got really curious, and I started a jade egg class with a tantra teacher. So I've always been into kind of these things, but I grew up in a really sexually repressed home in the South. And it was, a really big challenge of mine to break out of these cycles of shame around body and my sexuality. So I was on my own personal journey while also being really curious about mothers' journeys happening for them postpartum. For me, I started working with the Taoist jade egg practice. I had a tantra and jade egg teacher, and I started, releasing shame and guilt in my body. I started opening up and having my own sexual awakening.
Wonderful. I'm just wondering, if you could explain briefly what the jade egg practice is to our listeners, to those who don't know what that is.
Absolutely. The jade egg is an ancient Taoist practice that the jade egg is actually an egg-shaped stone that you put up your vagina. So it is less than the size of a chicken egg. They actually 3 different sizes. And the Taoist high priestesses would use them to, experience the maximum vitality, youthfulness, increased sexual energy, sexual aliveness, vibrancy, radiance. So they had their own reasons for using this practice. And it got passed down in the Taoist system. So it was actually created by women. Shamans in the Taoist era created it, and it was for them to use in that manner. And then as it's developed more and more, it's an energy practice that really can open up a woman to her full orgasmic and radiant potential. So
fantastic.
That's what it's actually for.
Yeah.
And
so I have a question for you, because I'm curious, because I know a little bit, but not a whole lot about this practice. So for those who might be wondering, like, is this something you have a sitting practice and then you insert the jade egg for a period of time? Are you like wandering around your house doing laundry and dishes with it in? How does that work?
This is a really great question, because a lot of women that have heard of a jade egg often ask me, well, isn't that unsafe? That's not like proven to be, that there was an article that came out about a year ago in response to Gwyneth Paltrow's article that she talked about on her Goop magazine. So she has an online editorial column, and she was talking about how amazing the jade egg was. And this OBGYN came out and smashed the jade egg practice and said, well, this isn't safe. It's not scientifically proven, and just all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just want to preface all of that by saying that this doctor, this OBGYN, had absolutely no idea what the jade egg practice actually was.
Its
She just,
history or roots or anything.
exactly,
Yeah.
she saw it as, oh, women are putting an egg-shaped stone up their vaginas and wearing it all day. And no one knows if that's safe. Well, you know what? She's probably right. We don't.
Right.
But that's not the jade egg practice.
Right. Got it. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So, I mean, that's just a fascinating practice to me, and it's probably a topic unto itself. And I know you have a lot of information on your website and definitely could share more about that practice. But rather than going deeper into it, I just wanted to kind of come back a little bit more to your path, and you were sharing, just so intimately about your journey and your experiences, with your own personal sexuality, and then also the sexualities of women that you were seeing postpartum. So I had a question about that. So I just wanted to reiterate. So you were saying that a lot of the mothers who had hit that point of the 6-week mark, a lot of them, and might even say most of them, did not want to engage in sexual activity at that point.
Correct.
Okay. And so then you got curious. You're like, okay, so what's going on here? And in that curiosity, I'm wondering what you discovered.
Yes. So it is biology that there is a dip in sexual desire after birth. And obviously it makes sense when you think of the biology behind it, because your sole biological purpose when you become a new mom is to, take care and make sure and tend to the aliveness of your child, right?
Exactly.
Not to create more children.
Right. Especially at 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Give us a break.
So that is totally normal to have that. And obviously you throw in lack of sleep, complete overwhelm with having a newborn, and it's, just a recipe for disaster. But what I was noticing is that the people that I was following, friends, clients, it was like every milestone that their child would hit, it would just never get better. Like their sexual health would never come back because they didn't do, and they would just end up in really unsatisfying sexual relationships, and because they didn't have any desire. That's what I got really curious about, was like, why is this transition from, a maiden to a mother so challenging for women in terms of rehabilitating their sexual health postpartum? What I found was that, well, we don't have any systematic rehabilitation process in the United States for women with their pelvic floors or their sexual health. No one about it, and no one lets you know what's normal and what's not. And finding a pelvic floor specialist, if you don't live in a huge city, is a nightmare to a lot of people. Getting insurance to pay for it is a nightmare. So people just aren't getting taken care of postpartumly.
It's so wrong on so many levels. And, I do see more and more like pelvic floor specialists, online, or people really advertising themselves in that way. But the fact that it's not part of the, the healthcare system and a practice, a normalized practice for women to, follow up with someone who examines their pelvic floor and has kind of a routine of pelvic floor health, or practices or exercises to help bring them back. I think it's a real shame.
Yeah. So there's that piece. There's physical piece of women don't know how to, rehab their own organs that are vital for sexual health and functioning. But they also don't know, when we're taught about sex, we're not taught about connection and intimacy. We're taught about a singular sexual act. And so we often view sex, and especially the Western area, we view sex as just this very small sexual experience. And we often forget all of the stuff that leads up to it, or all of the stuff that can build connection and intimacy without the actual sexual act. And because we don't have a lot of really amazing relationship therapists, coaches, as far as relationships go, we have a lot of room for improvement on giving good information, practices, and techniques for people to create intimacy and connection apart from an exclusive sexual act. And, so there's the physical piece, and then there's the emotional piece where we're not really getting the connection that we ultimately crave.
Mm-hmm.
For women to get the arousal that most of them need in the way that they need to prepare their body for the actual sexual act. So that's the second piece.
Such a good point. Such a good point. I love how you're breaking it down like that too. It makes me feel or think about rather the societal piece as well, because I'm aware, we live in a society that doesn't outwardly celebrate mother's erotic sexual, like the erotic sexual creature in the mother. It's not outwardly celebrated and portrayed as the norm, especially if you're over 40. It's not really portrayed in social media. There's not a lot of images to kind of support mothers, being erotic. And I'm wondering, I'm imagining that's going to make it even more difficult for mothers to rediscover their sexuality after babies if those images don't support women to take that path. So it seems like it will be extra challenging because the social messaging is, well, motherhood and sexuality doesn't really go together, or there might even be a taboo, an underlying taboo in society around that. So I wonder if you've had any observations around that, a societal level, or a lack of support, or a devaluing of those things coming together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. That's why people are so scared to have kids in their 30s. I mean, at least all of my friends that are in their 30s that haven't had kids in their 20s are like, oh my God, I'm scared to death to have a kid because my sex life is going to be over after I have them. That's literally what they all think. Really sad that that's what people are thinking their experience is going to be after they have children, that their sexuality is never going to be the same, that it's never going to be as good as it was in their 20s. So obviously there's a lot of social conditioning going on. Obviously there's a lot of taboo around mothers being fully alive, sexual, radiant beings. And no, we don't support that as a culture at all.
Yeah. And it's really sad that, that's preventing maybe some women from even being mothers, if that's part of what they're longing for, that somehow their fate is sealed. Like you've got to choose one or the other. So I'm so glad that you're coming forward and saying, actually, there's another way. So, which brings me, I guess, to the question of, okay, unless actually you want to, I should probably pause here and see if there are any more layers. Like you named the biological, also the relational, we touched on the societal. Are there any other layers, or are those the main ones before we move on to what do we do to help women here?
Well, I think that sums it up very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe then at this point, we can start talking about, from your experience and the work you've done, how can moms find their way back to their erotic nature, to their sexuality?
Yeah, that's a really big question. And I guess it depends on where she's at, or I don't guess. It really does depend on where you're at. But I mean, are most people listening today, are they here because they're new moms, or are they here, they've had kids for a little while already? Because being a new mom versus having an 8-year-old is a very different experience. And you have a different starting point, kind of.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Maybe you can touch on both, because I'm sure we have a mixture of listeners.
Okay. Yeah. So for women who have kids under 2 or 3-ish years old, you are still in that space of your body recovering from birth. Your body literally takes 3 years to fully recover from the birth process. And that might seem like a huge surprise to you, but to have everything come back together and to kind of stop changing as much, you'll find that it's kind of going to level off around 3 years. And anytime before that, though, you really have this opportunity to facilitate your body's healing and to kind of aid it. And probably the best thing that you could start with is really, where are you at with your desire? Where are you at with, are you happy with your sex life? And if you ask most people that question, they'll say that they're not. Most people are not happy with their sex life. I mean, you look how much little education we get on it and how little of our sexuality we actually allow ourselves to experience or what's actually available out there. It's really unbelievable how little we allow ourselves to experience. So if you are actually having sex pretty regularly, I don't know, maybe it's really boring, or maybe it's really hard for you to get out of your head and to really get into your body and feel everything, and for it to feel really good. So starting a woman off with a jade egg practice is by far the most rapid thing you can do to rehabilitate your body and your pelvic floor on a bodily level, to reconnect you to your body so you learn how to get out of your head and into your body and to really feel sensation, to get in touch with sensation down there instead of numbness. So if you experience numbness or pain, which often happens in those first few years postpartum, it can really release that. And then, if there are any issues with the relational piece with the partner, then learning some connection practices, some intimacy building practices is super important if you're just not in the space of wanting to have sex a lot, because chances are you're a new mom, you're not going to want to have sex that much because you're so busy. You're up all the time in the middle of the night, and it's just really hard to connect on that level. But if you really want to maintain a great relationship with your partner, you still need to be able to connect on an intimate level. And maybe you can learn some practices and tools that I teach in my coaching, outside of the actual sexual act. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. Yeah. And do you mind giving maybe one or two examples of how couples can practice some of these intimate building practices?
Yeah, totally. Well, I am a tantrika. I've studied tantra for a long time. Also studied sex, love, and relationship coaching, which in that course of study, we were given many, many tools and practices on connection and intimacy building. And one of my absolute favorites is called the Fears, Desires, and Loves practice. And it's a connection and communication practice in one, which is why I love it so much. Mm-hmm. And it's basically learning how to hold space for each other, and by so you sit across from each other, and mm-hmm. one sharing, what do you desire, or what are your desires tonight, and then you just keep asking the same question over and over as the other partner answers. So if there's ever a pause, then they go, thank you, what do you desire? Thank you, what do you desire? And it allows the person speaking to really reach in and get in touch with their desire. Because as new moms, that's something that we have a lot of challenges with as well, is we're so thinking about everybody outside of us, our baby, making sure they're okay, that we forget about our own desires and needs. So this kind of forces you to think about your own desires, to think about what you love about your partner. So the second question is, what do you love about me? And then the person responding will tell you. So it's this connection happening with each partner speaking what they love about the other partner. And then what are you afraid of? Which is also a really great connection piece, to know what your partner's fears are and to speak those out loud. Because when do we ever actually get to a place and communication on a day-to-day basis with a 2-year-old and talk about what we're afraid of?
Right.
Like, who has those conversations if not in a specific container? That's have that conversation? We don't.
Yeah, we don't. And what a fantastic exercise. I mean, I'm sure, most of us, or a lot of people, are just like, at the end of the day, you get the kids to bed, it's like, give me the wine and the Netflix, right? But how empty that can feel sometimes. And it's definitely not relationship building. So if you can pull together a little bit of energy to do this exercise, I mean, I can just imagine and hearing it, these questions and where people are going with it. Just how fulfilling or nurturing it can be for the relationship, and
Yeah.
energizing compared to maybe just sacking out on the couch. And sometimes you might need to do that. But, as a general practice, I can see how the old ways of just kind of, okay, that's the end of the day. That's it. I'm tuning out can really make a relationship suffer.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, that's why most people that get separated and divorced are people that have just had kids within 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like 70% of people that get separated or divorced had a kid within 3 years.
Mm.
So it's a huge number. And that transition is super, super hard to navigate without putting some effort into it. And doing connection and communication building practices is so vital if you really want to stick with your partner and be happy. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people will stick with their partner just, because it's the right thing to do. They married, they said vows, whatever. But I mean, do you really want it to be fulfilling, mm-hmm. and to feel a connection with this person? Like, that's a core need, mm-hmm. in our experience, is to connect on a really deep, soulful level. And as moms, we often don't get it because we don't know how.
Right. And in those early years, both parents are typically so depleted, and it's kind of a survival mode mentality that it's like, what, my needs? What does that even mean? Because there's so much output, that I love this suggestion of this practice, because it really does bring the couple towards each other. And even imagining having that question asked as a new mother, well, hold on a second, what do you desire? Even the question alone and space to reflect on it, I can imagine being deeply nourishing.
Yeah. There's so many more, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that example. I mean, I know there's so much we could go into and talk about. But, just with our remaining 5 minutes, I'd love to just touch on something fun. And I remember receiving an email from you I'm on your list. So it was great to get this email. It was a really fun one about, pre-date night rituals, because I know couples try to carve out some time to get those date nights in. And I can speak from experience. I know many couples out there that struggle with this, where it's like, okay, you get the kids to bed again, you get the babysitter organized, you're all ready, and it's time to go out. And there's just exhaustion sometimes. And, it's like there's this expectation just to flick this switch. And it's like, okay, now we're in date mode. We're in date night mode. And I think sometimes there isn't enough preparation. And I just loved your email. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners, what are some pre-date night rituals that you would recommend?
Yeah, definitely. So you always got to start with unwinding, unraveling, getting out of mom mode. So I like to call it from tantrums to tantra.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Say it again.
From tantrums to tantra.
Oh,
so we're getting out of toddler mode, kid mode. You got to get out of the kid mode if you really want to go on a date and you feel like the vibrant, freaking sexy ass woman that you actually are.
Yeah.
Really got to ditch the mom mode. Like, and there's a way to do that. So go take a bath, go take a shower, however you prefer it, and freaking live it up. Make it the best, most exquisite bath you have ever had in your life. So get the candles out, get the salts out, get the essential oils out, treat yourself like you're the freaking queen. Okay. And go give yourself some really exquisite downtime to wash all the tantrums and the toddler stuff away, all the kid stuff. This is signaling to your primal brain. It's a date night ritual because ritual speaks to your primal brain. And when you do rituals like this, it's signaling to your brain, okay, this is what we're doing now. Like, we are out of that mode. We are stepping into this mode. It is a very deep human level experience. Okay, yeah, I am not this right now, but I am this,
Mm-hmm.
So stepping into that, washing it all off. And then when you're done with this exquisite time that you have given to yourself, when you get out of the tub, you can do something as simple as breast massage. Breast massage is so amazing for helping a woman turn on and open her heart, because in tantra and Taoism, for a woman to be really turned on, her heart and her cervix are completely correlated by one of the nerves that go through the body. And in order for her vagina and pussy to be actually turned on, her heart has to be open. So a really great heart opening process, such as breast massage, can really help you step into, wow, okay, I'm going on a date. I can be sexual. I can feel sexy right now.
Great. Yes.
So doing breast massage, it's really simple. I mean, I can tell you in 30 seconds how to do it. You just put some coconut oil, whatever skin-friendly oil you have in your hands, mix it with, if you want, and it's okay for your skin, an essential oil that works for you. And then rub your hands together and then bring them slowly to your breast and massage down on the outside, up on the inside in the circular direction for about 2 to 3 minutes. And this is the clearing direction. It's clearing out all of the lymph, draining any negative energies. And then you're going to switch the direction and massage up on the outside, down on the inside, and go like this for 2 or 3 minutes. And this is the pleasurable direction. So you might start to get a little turned on when you go in that direction. And this is also the heart opening direction. So you'll really start to open your heart, and it's super pleasurable and it feels really good. And it opens your heart to kind of receive a new experience.
Love it. I love it. I mean, it also is just this moment, this intimate moment with self, saying my pleasure matters, my desire matters, my body matters. And I can imagine too, like when you're connecting with your kids all day and then you're going to switch to connect with your partner, it's really vital to have that in-between time where you deeply connect with yourself. And to have this type of massage, it's like you're connecting with your sensuality or your sexuality in your body and really making that a priority. So I love that transitional ritual of breast massage. It's such a fantastic idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works.
Great. And for some women, if that's not an area of desire, I mean, can they do it? Could they do a foot rub? Could they do hands? I mean, some people have different types of sexual histories and preferences around their body. So I imagine some type of, like, if the breasts don't work for some people, there's some other way you can connect and have that pleasurable experience with self.
Yeah, I mean, you could massage anywhere that feels pleasurable to you. And I honestly don't know a woman that doesn't enjoy breast massage if she's doing it correctly.
Okay.
So I do have to say, though, that my experiences with men have absolutely no idea how to touch a woman's breasts correctly. So if you are basing your idea off of I don't like my breast touch because of your experiences with men, then that's probably because they're not doing it right. So if you do it like I just told you, it's very unlikely that wouldn't be pleasurable for you. But even if you try and it's not, then just massage whatever part of your body is. Maybe it's your vulva.
Yeah.
That's going to work too. That there's so much sensation. Obviously you can massage that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to give women the option, but I love the connection with the heart too, and the breast. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wonderful. Are there any more you want to share before we wrap up here around the pre-date night ritual?
Yeah, no, that's about all for the pre-date night ritual. So yeah, if you want to do that,
yeah,
it's two easy steps.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's a good way to remember. It's very simple. Obviously, if people want to hear more, learn more, they can contact you, and I can definitely put your information in our show notes. But I just want to thank you so much, Lacey. This has been really informative. You just have, really important knowledge and wisdom to share. And I just love that you're stepping forward and, claiming this passion around motherhood and sexuality and really being a voice for it, in our community. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for today's juicy episode, pun intended. I hope you gained some insight and tools from my interview with Lacey. What I know for sure is that as mamas, our bodies and our sexuality are truly divine. My hope is mamas everywhere reflect on the question of what brings you pleasure. And whatever it is, do more of it. Make the time. You are worth it. To get our show notes and more information, go to www.honestmamas.com/episode 42. Also join our community on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/honestmamascommunity, where conversations like these will continue.